quick and easy videos to recap what we're doing with our writing this month of Ghost Boys. So this month we are writing an explanatory essay, and it is connecting the past and the present of racial injustice. And we know racial injustice is a very big topic of our novel, Ghost Boys. And we see that the author includes and compares what has happened in the past, right? And uses Emmett Till as a symbol of what happened in the past. And then, of course, uses Jerome Rogers as what is happening currently in the present with racial injustice. So for part one of our explanatory writing, we always know that we have to review the writing task. We have to read what the question is. We have to ask ourselves what type of writing we're doing. We have to ask ourselves who will be our audience. And we also have to ask ourselves what is going to be the topic of our essay, right? So we're going to do that together now. If you notice on your screen, you see this, you actually have this document on Google Classroom, and none of your words in the writing task are highlighted. But I have highlighted them to show you the different parts and, of course, also the topics and the important words that you're going to need as you're writing your essay. So you can definitely use this as a review, and you can highlight them as well on your paper. So the writing task says, throughout our novel study, it is evident that racial prejudice is a recurring issue as we have learned about the deaths of both Emmett Till and Jerome Rogers. Now notice how I highlighted the topic. Racial injustice is a recurring issue. So we spoke about in class what recurring means. So it's basically happening over and over again, right? There hasn't really been an end. So we know that racial injustice means that people of color are not being treated equally, right? There's an injustice based on the race that you are and the color of your skin. So with that, we know that the topic is racial injustice and the fact that it is still happening and it has not stopped, right? It has not ended. Okay, so we can use that for our introduction, right? Maybe our hook. So we might want to talk about that topic. We might want to talk about what racial injustice means, what it looks like, that sort of stuff. Now let's take a look at the bullets. Bullet number one is the first question, okay? We know that in an explanatory essay, we have to explain, right? We're writing to inform the reader about a topic. So let's see what it is that we're going to need to inform them of. How does the novel make connections between racial injustice in the past and present? Interesting. So we highlighted connections, racial injustice, and past and present. Now, the reason why we highlight that is because we know that we're going to need to explain, right? Because it tells us how does the novel make those connections. We're going to need to explain how the author of the novel Ghost Boys decided to include the past and the present and how what connections they have about racial injustice. In other words, past and present. When I think of past and present, I think of, back then, right? Years ago, and then what's happening now and today, in today's world. So we mentioned before how Emmett Till is a symbol of what happened in the past. Emmett Till is a symbol of segregation and then the civil rights movement, right? Because we know that his death sparked the beginning of the civil rights movement. And then, of course, the present is Jerome. Jerome symbolizes the present, right? Jerome symbolizes all these other people who have been killed because of racial injustice. For example, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, right? All these other people that we've talked about and learned about in class. So what connections, like how does the author connect what happened in the past to what is happening now in the present? Okay, that's the first question. And then question number two is, what are the similarities in the ways each death impacted the public? Notice we highlighted the word similarities, and we also highlighted ways each death impacted the public. Now, similarities, we know we want to say how they're the same, right? How they are similar. So we want to talk about how remember, we're talking about these two characters, right? Emmett Till and Jerome Rogers. So we want to mention how Emmett and Jerome's deaths impacted the public. The public being the people who were around during the time of their death, right? Think about what Emmett Till's murder and death sparked in the world, Remember that civil rights leader, the civil rights leader, Rosa Parks, right? So she, obviously, we know that Rosa Parks was inspired by Emmett Till, and what happened to him, right? She was inspired by that. And remember that we know that his mom left the casket open on purpose to show the people in Chicago what was happening with segregation in the South, right? Because he was murdered in Mississippi. So it was to bring awareness. And I think that Rosa Parks also did that on purpose. She wanted to bring awareness that we need a change. So think about how, Emmett Till's death impacted the people during his time, right? Of course, it brought the civil rights movement. And now Jerome, because we said that Jerome symbolizes all these people that are currently being killed because of racial injustice, we can say that he has impacted, or his death has impacted, the Black Lives Matter movement, right? That we have seen and heard of many times before. And you can mention that as well, and how that has impacted that. We know that in the courtroom at one point, somebody even shouts out Black Lives Matter, right, during the preliminary hearing of Jerome Rogers. So you can include that, right? And of course, we know that we need to cite evidence from the text and the videos, right? There's 2 videos we watched on Emmett Till. And of course, use evidence from both of those sources to support what it is that you're saying. Okay, so next video, I will show you part number 2, so creating a thesis. But right now, I want you to make sure you understand the writing task and what it is that we are doing.